but I thought I'd take the time to interrupt to talk to you about this article that I read. I picked up on your LinkedIn feed. So I thought just take a minute to tell me a little bit about what I saw. I think it was on Security Today. It was talking a little bit about business
Yep.
intelligence,
Yep.
business intelligence. But first, tell me where you're at.
Well, I'm in Brooklyn, New York tonight, and here I've been here for a few days, right outside of Manhattan, and just getting a little downtime today. But here for a couple of meetings in the borough of Brooklyn and Staten Island, and coming to you live from downtown Brooklyn at the Hilton.
So overall, what was the article about?
ONSSI, one of our manufacturers, approached us to do this article, and it's pretty unique. Everyone thinks of industrial security as security cameras, for theft, along those lines, crime prevention. But this was a very unique application over at Highland. We worked closely with their president, John Beard, when we did this design for their manufacturing floor, which is about 100,000 square feet. And the purpose of these cameras wasn't for security, it was to improve safety. So there's tons of big machinery on the floor that, if not operated in the right way, can cause bodily injury. And the client had a unique need during the bid process, which was they wanted 100% coverage of their production floor. We were able to utilize a technology 2 years ago that wasn't very popular then, which was the 360 fisheye cameras, and which does dewarping. And using about approximately 80 of those cameras, we were able to give him 100% coverage on his manufacturing floor. And the purpose of this, it's a little unique. They use it to look at creating training videos for if someone is doing the wrong thing on the manufacturing floor that can probably cause harm. So they actually use these clips as training clips to enhance their safety. And they also use it to look at their production flow, so they can determine what can be improved, because you have 100% situational awareness of what's going on the floor. And when you look at something from bird's eye, whether we're looking at a plan or we're looking at a physical shot from a camera, it lets you optimize the flow of the manufacturing floor to improve efficiency. And that's what they've done over the last 2 years, leveraging this system that we put in there.
Yeah, I think you and I both know. You know, a lot of people who use video and they start out with one intent. They end up. I think even you have discovered video has multiple effects that you don't really notice or really didn't anticipate. I guess is what I'm trying.
Absolutely. And the technology has come such a long way, Tony. You think about it, we're in the theme park world, right? We're using cameras to look at hotspots. And what that simply means is, hey, if we have a camera looking at a particular area, we want to see how much traffic is in that area. There are analytics now that are built into the camera that shows a heat map, like red being the most concentrated area. And industries like theme parks can use that to determine where people spend most of their time in a particular area. So if you had a food and beverage stand, or you had a particular ride, or something there that gathered their attention, um, we can use that as intelligence also to provide that type of information back to the customer. So we're really pushing towards the business intelligence end rather than the security end, because there's so much more use for these computers with lenses, as I call them. They're pretty sophisticated machines that can provide a lot of data to you.
Yeah, so I think it's really it's best that leave it up to you guys to not to work with you guys to not dream up all of the different applications that can be used. It's best to if a lot of people put the limitations on what can be done, because of what they see out there and what they already know. But I think the other aspect of it too is there was some mention of Ocularis
Yep.
in there, and kind of tell me a little bit about that and how you guys see them and what role.
Well, everything we do is design build. And when the customer came to us and told us the application, when you're running this much 360 cameras, remember, they're very high resolution cameras, and they create up to about 4 streams per camera. So you're looking at about 13 to 15 megabytes of actual data per camera, which is a lot. The average 1080p camera produces about maybe 3 megs of traffic. So imagine you've got 80 of these coming into servers. If we had gone with another platform, we would probably have to use maybe double the amount of servers. So, utilizing the Ocularis 5.0 engine, which is this new engine when they purchased CTEC, it is so efficient in the way it writes to RAM first and then to disk. So we're able to do a lot more processing on a single server. So in a high density application like this with high bandwidth cameras, our pricing was very effective because the servers today, RAM is so cheap, and with our design, we have our own unique design on the servers. That Ocularis engine allow us to leverage that design where it writes the RAM first and reduce the amount of servers for this job. And even though we're running two servers, we're barely over 30% CPU usage on average during peak time. So that's pretty impressive for a recording engine. There's few out there that can achieve that task today.
All right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, of course, I can follow a lot of the technical terms, and of course, your guys' breadth of knowledge is way higher than what I know. Of course, I'm just here to do the interview, so
Well,
and kind of
we
keep
learn
you
every
on
day.
point. But I do have kind of a aptitude for some of this stuff, and I can hear what you're saying. But overall, what I hear you saying is you're going to use the technology to make sure you use the right technology for the application, and that's what your real focus is. Is that what you're?
Absolutely. We're all about creating a solution to fulfill the result the customer wants. We always ask the customer, what's the result you want at the end of the day? And then we design the system. So,
I think a lot of companies, they design a solution for a general sort of overall application, and then they kind of push what they have and say, hey, this is for everyone, and kind of a one size fits all, and you'll come in there and say, hey,
yep.
this we could do this in a much better fashion, and we're not necessarily stuck on any one thing, and so that kind of keeps all the companies on their toes in a sense by saying, hey, we've got to make sure we've got the best. You're not necessarily married to one solution. Is that?
Right. So yeah, we invest a lot of time in R&D, and depending on the need for the customer, if we don't have the solution, we'll let them know we need time to do some research and testing at our lab facility in Apopka, and we'll get that technology in and test it and make sure it's going to do what the customer wants it to do before we go into design phase with that. So that's a very common practice for us that we do for our customers today.
Very cool. Now, is there anything in respect to the Security Today article and that you want to add to it, or anything that?
I got a few calls from people that read it actually, and one of the big question was demand for our network node module, our Red Watt service, and it's a pretty unique device. A lot of systems this size, your average cost of maintaining per year with service calls out there for this size system can run you 4K to 6K depending on what's going on, and if there's been weather related damage or anything along those lines. We've been able to leverage our network operating center of Apopka and our little module to do active health monitoring for the devices. Now that's a very common word in the industry, Tony. Health monitoring. Everybody says they does it. Even the VMS manufacturers say that, but it really isn't active, and you get a lot of false alerts. So if you had like in this case, about 100 cameras, and your network switch took a 2-second bleep, guess what? You get 100 alerts coming to your email. And if that bleep happened 3 times in a day because there was some brownouts or some issues for maintenance, your support personnel would just get overwhelmed with those emails. So our little device there, we can set time thresholds for when the device goes off the network, and we also listen to the VMS to see what it's saying, because sometimes the device can be on the network but not produce a stream. And the most common fix to that is to restart a camera. Well, most companies out there, they have to roll a truck to go do that, or send someone to the room to go unplug the camera and plug it back in. That's all done automatically with our AI agents built into our product today. So that has saved Highland Packaging a significant amount of money on service costs, and obviously lowering the total cost of ownership for the solution.
Yeah. So I think it's fairly obvious, as I think about it, that everyone wants to. It is much nicer to have a proactive response than a reactive one. Most people tend to, it's easier to kind of fall into that reactive, you know, thing because it kind of comes down to numbers sometimes. And,
Yeah,
but when it comes to making that decision, I mean, the reason we're doing this is because you want to help people make a decision. And I think
absolutely.
the proactive feeling, like, I mean, I think it would be the last thing on people's mind really is what you guys do. And I think that in some sense, but when it comes to actually solving the problem, the proactive response is the best response.
Absolutely, Tony. And one thing I want to add to that is, if you look at your car, do you wait till the engine dies to change the oil, or do you proactively go change your oil every 5,000 miles?
So, what from your viewpoint, what would you say is the typical number of results in a year that's needed, things like that? What would you say?
Well, I'll tell you, over the last 2 years, we've probably been on site maybe a maximum of 2 to 3 times a year. 2 times is what we typically will do a preventative maintenance, where we'll actually roll a truck twice a year for that. But I mean, twice a year is impressive for that density of cameras and the size of the access control system and the other IP modules we have in there. So when you look at it, if we did not have a proactive monitoring system, it'll probably be a couple of visits a quarter on a system that size. So when they look at their cost, they'll see a drastic reduction in maintenance over the years. So sometimes the solution may be a little more upfront for something intelligent, but one, you have 99% uptime because when you have a system that large, typically there are cameras that are down. You don't know they're down until something goes wrong because no one's looking at them. So in this type of scenario, we reduce that percentage significantly by doing the proactive health monitor, which is all autonomous. So when you look at that cost saving, I mean, geez, you figure to roll a truck in the state of Florida for the first, just to get the truck out to you, there's a minimum cost of about $175 plus the hourly charge for the tech that's going to be out there. So we're definitely saving them about maybe 60 to 70% on their maintenance costs per year by doing the proactive monitoring and remote support from the knock.
I think in today's security-minded world, I don't think it's really that big of a hurdle, but I think it's just something to kind of have in the back of the mind before coming in and kind of help. Because I
Well, think
mean,
about
just regular PC updates alone,
yeah,
is kind of almost an easy example and an easy parallel to draw.
absolutely. I mean, think about it, right? These cameras are intelligent computers that need patching. As we all know, it's getting more and more popular. We've been talking about this for 2 years. They're hijacking cameras and making them Bitcoin miners. Well, the average IP camera solution out there for industrial markets, no one's patching the cameras, no one's patching the servers, and that's where the vulnerabilities on the network lie. And that's all included in our, monthly preventative monitoring. The systems get patched when the patches come out, and everything is up to date on the security. So we're limiting the chance of it being compromised, in the high 90s. There's always a way to get the system compromised, but if you make it difficult, they'll move on to the next guy. And this way, the customer can sleep at night and their system is running efficiently throughout the course of the year at a minimal cost.
They can focus on other things.
Yep, they need to focus on what they do best. They make some of the best clear plastic clamshells in the food industry that you see strawberries and croissants, grapes. Those are the guys that make it, Highland Packaging. It's a unique place and unique product, and they've got even 3D printers where you can come in and sketch a model up and say, this is what I want my package to look like, and they can build you a prototype by the time the end of the meeting. So it's a pretty sophisticated manufacturing plant. But at the same time, you know, they want to keep the cost. Surveillance is not what they do for a living, and using it for what they're using it for. We're keeping that cost down and allowing them to focus on what they do best.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think unless there's something you want to add, I think we wanted to just do this conversation in light of that article and kind of it was not, the article wasn't necessarily focused on Red Ash. It was kind of focused on business intelligence, but it did
Yeah.
feature you, and we kind of wanted to add a sort of a response to that and just add to it. I think was our goal, and kind of it was a really great article and just add to it. And so unless you had anything you wanted to add to it, I think that's a
No, I think that's it. I'm gonna head back and get some Junior's cheesecake. I'm here in Brooklyn and it's late at night, and I feel a piece of cheesecake. So
I'm gonna get ready for bed and be jealous. So,
All right, there you go.
unless you
Have,
bring me a piece back, that'd be great. So,
there you go.
all right,
Awesome.
all right.
Good
Well,
night,
thank
again.
you. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye bye.